the artist's house. Robert would be left in the upstairs window where children in the area reported seeing the doll disappear and reappear, and they all chose to just stay clear of the house. After Jean passed away in 1974, a woman named Myrtle purchased the house, and apparently Robert as well. Visitors of the house could swear that they could hear footsteps and giggling coming from the attic where Robert was, and some even claimed to see the doll's expression changed if someone spoke poorly of Jean. Myrtle reported Robert moving around the house on his own, and after 20 years, she decided she had had enough. Museum. Robert still lives in the museum, locked up, but it is said that he still take his photo without permission. The visitors and naysayers his forgiveness and asking him to remove any curse he has placed on them. In our 6-month day, we have the Atlantis Ring. The Atlantis Ring was originally made of clay, and it was found in 1860 in the Valley of the Kings in a tomb of an Egyptian high priest. It was then passed on to Howard Carter, who used it until he passed away in 1939. The ring was believed to be at least 5,000 years old, and it had geometric symbols carved into it that were unlike anything known in Egypt. Here's where the story gets a little weird, though. Howard is one of the people King Tut's tomb, and he would later tell people he was wearing a talisman when the tomb was opened, also known as the Atlantis Ring. He claimed that the ring gave him protection, and that just might be true because he is the only member of the team who didn't die a mysterious death after the opening of the tomb. Even those who visited shortly after the opening of the tomb were subject to this curse, with a total of 18 victims in the end. Howard said that the ring is what protected him against whatever evil forces were at play. So I guess maybe the Atlantis Ring is more like an anti-curse object. Real deal. In our number 5 spot today, we
Fuck, I killed them. Try not to exterminate the humans. My B. No. No. Damn. Damn, it's still hit the fuck. Shit. What? Nah. Hold on. Let me sit up. Let me sit up. I forgot I had the time stop. Alright, let me immediately kill this one.
Person within her family, and with each new owner came a mysterious death. Because of this, the family decided to hide the vase away in some sort of secret location, and this worked for a while until the vase was unearthed once more in 1988. The vase also contained a piece of paper from the family that warned, "Beware, this vase brings death." Well, of course, whoever found the vase did not listen, and instead they sold it once again. The first buyer, who is said to have been a pharmacist, owned the vase for 3 months before passing away under mysterious circumstances. Then there was the 37-year-old surgeon who died after having the vase for 2 months. After this was the archaeologist who only made it 3 months with this vase in his possession, and at this point you get where this is going. We don't know exactly where the vase ended up, but I'm hoping it's somewhere deep underground. Or maybe in space. Or maybe in the Mariana Trench. Just anywhere far away from all of us. In our number one spot today, we have the goddess of death. This statue is sometimes also known as the woman from Lem. This artifact, made out of limestone, was created sometime around 3500 BC, and it was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years, it has belonged to many different families who have all been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides. However, the museum curator who handled the item was mysteriously killed a few days after. It is clear whatever curse this statue holds, it is strong and frightening. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Anna Baker's wedding dress. In 1836, a man named Elias Baker purchased a mansion in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and moved his small family in. Elias's oldest daughter was named Anna, and when she fell in love with a steel worker, things took a very dark turn. Anna's father didn't want her dating this man, but she kept doing it in secret. The story goes that Anna and the man planned a secret wedding, and they were going to elope. Unfortunately, Elias found out and freaked out. He apparently purchased the steel mill that this man worked for, and then forced him to have to move to an entirely different city so as to prevent him from being able to continue seeing Anna. Anna, of course, was furious with her father, and I'm sure this was only made worse by his decision to offer other men to her, to which she, of course, declined, because that's just weird. Anna instead locked herself in her room with her wedding dress that she never got to wear. Anna unfortunately never married after that and spent the rest of her life being terribly upset about the whole incident. After her death, it is said that her anger and despair ended up going into the wedding dress. Members of the Baker family reported seeing the dress in different places around the house, despite no one moving it themselves. Some had even reported seeing Anna's spirit dressed in the gown around the house as well. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Hands Resist Him. The Hands Resist Him is a painting created by artist Bill Stoneham, and it is supposed to represent the doorway that connects our world with the world of the spirits, the doorway to the other side. This is extra suspicious, considering owners of the painting have claimed that they have seen the characters in the painting move, or sometimes even disappear at night. The painting is said to depict Bill as a child, looking quite sad with a doll with creepy hollow eyes. In the background, you can see mysterious mysterious hands reaching out towards the boy. The creepiness of the painting is only elevated when we hear the stories of the reported 3 people who passed away after coming into contact with the painting. It ended up kind of disappearing for around 15 years until it popped back up on eBay. Even then, the seller warned potential buyers that the painting was haunted and claimed that the boy in the painting would come out of it and scare their child. The painting ended up being sold for $1,025 to a buyer in Michigan, and at this point, it's unclear if they've had any troubles with the rumored hauntings and curses. In our number 8 spot today, we have the cursed phone number. I didn't know a phone number could be cursed, but apparently it's true, and I know a phone number technically isn't an object, but I still feel like this had to be included today because it's just too crazy to not. There was a Bulgarian phone number that is said to have been in use for 10 years before it was closed. The reason why it ended up being closed and put out of use is because it is rumored to have belonged to 3 separate people who all died of mysterious circumstances after having been assigned the phone number. Apparently, all of the deaths took place shortly after the person had been assigned the number, and they were all seemingly a bit suspicious. Thus, the rumors of the cursed telephone number began to spread. After this, the company made the decision to suspend the phone number, and they didn't give out details as to why. I wonder if the two are related. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Belcourt Castle chairs. Belcourt Castle is located in Newport, Rhode Island, and it is a former summer cottage. Construction on the cottage started in 1891, with it being completed in 1894, and inside there is a ballroom. The ballroom is important because it is said that it holds a group of haunted chairs. People who have visited the castle have reported a ton of strange happenings regarding this specific set of chairs. The reports include things like feeling chills racing up and down their spines, or feeling a strange sensation in a shift of energy while standing. Come on. Dang it! I'm lost again. You guys say that I can hit a jackpot as soon as a minute. Well, I played top down, and I got hit a smooth jackpot. Please calm down. Is the game you downloaded Jackpot World? No. Why? Sorry, you must have downloaded a fake box. You need to download through this video. Fake? Aren't they all the same? Not the same. With Jackpot World, you can really hit the jackpot within a minute, and you can even enter free games within 20 minutes. Is it really that bad? You guys are gonna make me top up, are you? Please, don't worry. We will not force you to make any purchases. You can enjoy the same bonuses that will secure the chairs, and some people have even explained how they have been pushed out of the chairs by an invisible force. I feel like just hearing stories might be enough to explain the energy shift some people are feeling, but actually being pushed out of a chair by some sort of invisible force would be absolutely terrifying. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Anguished Man. While it is unknown who or when it was created, this painting is said to carry some kind of a curse. It is rumored that whoever created it mixed his blood with the oil paint, and when he finished creating it, he ended up taking his own life. When a woman who is referred to as Mrs. Robinson originally took possession of the painting after it was given to her by a family friend, she immediately knew that something was wrong with it. She ended up passing it along to her grandson, Sean, who currently still owns the painting. When Sean hung the painting up, they apparently started experiencing paranormal events. The Robinson family has reported many different strange events that have happened in relation to the painting, such as hearing screams and groans coming from it, as well as hearing doors creaking when no one is around them, and being awoken in the middle of the night by blood-curdling screams that they can't find the source of. Sean has even uploaded videos to YouTube where he shows these paranormal events, and it has been reported that the family now keeps the painting hidden away in the basement, which is probably for the best. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Dark Mirror. This mirror now resides within the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, and just that alone is enough to know it deserves a spot on today's list. The museum received this mirror from the owner who had purchased it from a psychic fair. It is believed that this mirror was created sometime around the 1820s or 30s, and it is actually quite beautiful to look at, despite the sinister things it seems to hold. The owner who gave it to the museum explained that every time they peered into the mirror, they saw these extremely upsetting things while looking into the dark mirror's reflection. The museum has said that since they added the mirror to their collection, there have been guests who have also reported the same kind of things. Guests have claimed to see things reflected back at them like sightings of their own corpse. In our number 4 spot today, we have Old Nick. Old Nick is often referred to as the Swansea Devil, and his story dates back to the 1890s, although he now resides in the Swansea Museum. So, back in the 1890s, there was the prestigious St. Mary's Church located right
Yeah, you gotta get to the phone, boy.
I'm streaming me playing the game, so don't curse.
Okay. Hey guys, how are you? Today I'm gonna be your teacher.
They don't
Today we're
fuck
gonna.
with you. Shut up.
Oh.
Yep.
Look, but okay. Anyways, I gotta go do something anyway.
What took you so long?
Huh?
What took you so long?
My mom came home and then she's like, Destiny, by the time I get back, when I'm done after work, you better be ready.
Ready for what?
Holy.
The office building with Old Nick was undamaged and remained standing. For a while, Old Nick seemed to disappear, but once he resurfaced,
She's so
the
happy.
put him back to where he was before, as well as a subsequent counter petition to put him far, far away from the rebuilt St.
Not a
Mary's
good
Church.
guy,
As
is
of
he?
now, Old Nick resides behind glass in the Swansea Museum, and it is said that he is enclosed in glass more for our protection rather than his. In our number 3 spot today, we have the cursed portrait. Bernardo de Galvez was born in Spain in 1746, and he went on to become a military leader. He became well known for helping American colonies during the War of Independence before he apparently passed away under mysterious circumstances in 1786. There is a portrait of Bernardo that resides in the Galvez Hotel in Galveston, Texas, which is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in the world. And that makes sense because this portrait is said to be one of the cursed objects that gives the hotel its spooky title. The portrait is located at the end of a hallway in the hotel, and guests have reported the eyes following their every move. People also report a cold or uncomfortable feeling when they get close to the painting, and this is said to be Bernardo's spirit. Some people even swear they can feel him following them around the hotel. It is also
I'll be
said
back.
that any picture you try to take
I
of
can't
the
find
portrait
it.
will come out blurry and distorted unless you ask Bernardo for permission first. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This diamond has an extremely controversial history and is the source of a lot of debate, but regardless of the ongoing conversations over who really owns it, we are here to talk about the curse that this stone is said to hold. This diamond dates back thousands of years, and its curse is said to only affect men. It is said that the jewel can bring about great wealth, but it can also bring great misfortune as well to those who own it. Folklore states that he who owns this diamond will own the world, but will also know all of its misfortunes. Only God or women can wear it with impunity. Throughout the history of the diamond, it was passed among many people and rulers who all fought bloody battles while in possession of it. Every prince who had it is said to have ultimately lost either their power or their life while in possession of it as well. Part of the controversy of the diamond is how it ended up in the hands of the British royal family during colonization in the 1800s. Ever since then, it has only been worn by female.
FanDuel Sportsbook lets you bet at the speed of the infinite game. And if you feel the momentum shifting, you can cash out while you're ahead. Right now, new customers get a risk-free first bet up to $1,000. Download FanDuel today.
Monarchs, including Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth. In our number 1 spot today, we have James Dean's car. Okay, this one might seem like a bit of a wild card, but hear me out. Famous actor James Dean passed away from a car accident on September 30th, 1955. At the time, he was driving his silver Porsche 550 Spider, which he had just recently purchased. This was only the beginning of the car's curse, however, as after James' passing, the remnants of the totaled car were bought by a man named George Barris. He decided to sell parts of the car to James' fans, but when the car was being worked on and taken apart, it ended up falling on a mechanic and it crushed him to death. These two incidents are more than enough to now consider the car cursed, but it still continues on. Once the people who had purchased some of the car parts began receiving them, more strange things happened. 3 of the people who received parts ended up in car accidents, all of which were sadly quite severe. The shell of the car was also stolen, and to this day, it has never been recovered. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Crying Children paintings. These paintings were a series created by an Italian painter who's known as Giovanni Bragolin, but his real name was Bruno Amarillo. Bruno was born in Venice in 1911 and fought in World War II, which ended up being the inspiration for a lot of his paintings. During his time in the war, he saw a lot of suffering children, and this is where he got the idea for the series of Crying Children paintings. After the paintings were sold, there began to be reports of fires in all of the places where the paintings were held. While this could have just been a strange coincidence, the weirdest part is that the paintings always remained intact while everything else around them was burned. This quickly became the most talked about thing and was on the front of every newspaper, and the paintings quickly gained the nickname Diablo. It caused these paintings to end up being replicated and mass produced, but None of the replicas hold quite the same power as the originals. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Blarney Stone. For hundreds of years, the Blarney Stone has resided within Blarney Castle, which is near Cork, Ireland. The stone is a piece of limestone, and legend says that those who give the stone a smooch will then be given the gift of the
They
dead.
want me to complete this thing so bad, bro.
Being able to talk your way
Like,
out of
fuck.
any situation, which would be incredibly useful, but there are always those who try to indulge in too much of a good thing. The issues start when you attempt to take a piece of the stone, no
Oh,
matter
with a
how
B.
small, a
Once she was up with B, fuck
those
A.
who don't follow the rules and take the stone will be cursed with bad luck. Every year, the council receives parcels from greedy tourists who try their luck at stealing portions of the stone. These parcels are returned with the intention of lifting the curse of misfortune. It is said that once the stone is removed, the curse will be lifted, which is most definitely good news. Because the goal of this curse, however, is to make ingredients just
I tried to go get another Xenosphere, but they ain't let me.
this grenade skull resides in the
No, you have no filter into watching your fucking mouth.
Catherine and
Shut the fuck up.
Catherine was
Look
the
at
youngest
you.
in a family, and she was
Cussing me
the
out
one
in
who
front of
enjoyed
people.
Alexa!
the most. One day while she was out strolling around, she ended up being surrounded by a group of robbers who took all of her possessions and then viciously
Prevent my
left
symbols
her
from
left
touching
for
the
dead.
ground.
She was found and brought back to the hall to be tended to, but unfortunately, a few days later, she succumbed to her injuries. Before she died, she was upset about the thought of leaving her family, so she asked them to remove her head after her death and keep her skull so that they would always have a piece of her around. The family agreed to her face, but after her passing, they buried her body.
Any
and
fucking ways,
because,
bitches.
to be fair, it was an odd request. After her burial, the family began
Drop the
experiencing
symbols
some
again.
extremely strange things around the house, like bumps and moans and horrible blood-curdling screams that they could not find the source of. This is when they decided to follow through with the request Catherine had left them, and the strange occurrences suddenly stopped. After this, at one point, a maid had found the skull, and in her surprise, she threw it out of a nearby upper window, and alas, the strange occurrences began again. In the end, it was decided that the best policy was to place the skull in a secret spot within the
More
walls of the
intruders are
house,
coming to
probably
Earth.
behind some paneling in the Great Hall so that its presence could be easily ignored, and so that Catherine's spirit could reside in
Man,
peace in her beloved
fuck
home.
Earth.
I guess the lesson of this one is to follow the wishes of those
Fuck.
Isn't that good to stop listening to stuff like that?
Spirit is gonna stay lingering around afterwards.
For what?
In our number 7 spot today, we have the haunted doll.
Oh my god, that's your problem.
Apparently, but this one doesn't exactly.
Well, you gonna
have
pray
a
for me,
name.
it's alright.
The doll's owners say that this doll is
Right.
possessed and causes
Right.
lots of troubles.
Right.
The incredible
Yes.
thing about this one is that it is said that you don't need to do anything in order for this doll to decide it wants to harm you.
She
You just
ain't
simply
you.
need
That's
to be
damn right.
around it, and that is more than enough for the
She
torment to
ain't.
start.
She
Owners of the
ain't.
doll have reported getting a bunch of strange scratches, which they believe are because of the doll. It isn't exactly clear where the spirit or spirits that reside in this doll have come from or what happened, but the doll was bought from its previous owners by a woman named Deborah Davies, who is a psychic. Deborah reported the same scratches as the previous owners, but she also may have been able to contact the spirit residing in the doll. She claimed that the spirit was that of a young girl who had her life taken from her, but she also reported that the nasty, evil energy within the doll is a male, and she believes that this energy is that of the man who took the life of the girl. At the end of the day, whatever is haunting this doll.
I caught my boyfriend cheating on me, and that's when we decided to call Psychic Donna for the first time.
Well, it's certainly a spirit.
Personally, I would open the door for someone who bent on it like that.
Spot today we have the ballista balls. A ballista
Why?
is used in the military.
Stop fucking yelling.
Similar to a
Damn.
crossbow, but much larger, and it can shoot arrows or stones. In 1989, there were archaeologists that were working by the Israeli-Syrian border when they found these large stones close to what seemed to be the remains of a ballista. But around 1995, the stones ended up getting stolen, and it took a while for anyone to notice. Fast forward to 2015, and the same stones that were stolen ended up in the courtyard of a museum in Israel with a note left from the person who stole them. The note explained that ever since they took them, he had experienced terrible luck and believed the stones were the reason. He had a very successful business that suddenly began to fail after he took the stones, and later his family abandoned him, and he was forced to get rid of almost all of his possessions to settle all of his debts so as to not go bankrupt. He mentioned that he believed the stones were cursed and that they were the root of all of his problems. Whether or not these stones are actually cursed or if this was just some pretty heavy karma drama, I hope this guy's been able to get his life back on track. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Golden Eagle. This car was a 1964 Dodge 330 limited edition, and it has been blamed for the death of around 14 people, which is 14 too many if you ask me. It was said that this car started out as a police car originally, but then there were 3 officers assigned to this car who all ended up taking their lives and other people's lives in horribly violent ways. Not in the car, but still. Super weird that this all seemed to happen after they had been using the car for work. Because of this strange correlation, it ended up being sold off to another man. Throughout the 80s and 90s, it was said that because of the rumored cursed car, it became a point of interest for vandals. People began vandalizing the car only to meet their own untimely fates, which were all met in strange ways. For example, it was said that one vandal died from being struck by lightning, and another ended up being decapitated by an 18-wheeler. It is said that the curse is so strong that one kid decided to merely touch the car, and it sent him into madness, as he went on to commit atrocious crimes that I can't even detail here on YouTube. The car now belongs to Wendy Allen, who supposedly collects and decorates haunted cars for a living, so it seems as though it's finally found its home far, far, far away from everyone else. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Myrtle's Plantation Mirror. Myrtle's Plantation is located in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and it is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world. One of the reasons for this spooky reputation is because of a mirror that resides inside. It is said that this mirror holds the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and her 2 children. Legend goes that a woman named Chloe was a slave at the plantation who drew up a plan to get revenge on the owners of the plantation, Sarah and her husband. Chloe baked a cake full of poison for them, but it ended up only being Sarah and 2 of her children who consumed the poisonous cake. When they passed away, it is said that their spirits went into the only mirror that was uncovered at the time. Thus, the haunted mirror was born. People who have since visited the plantation have claimed to see the family in the reflection, as well as the handprints of small children on the glass, despite continuous polishing. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Surrey Ghost Car. On December 11th of 2002, a call came into the Surrey Police Department. The caller reported that they had just seen a car lose control and run off the road and then presumably crash. It was of course an emergency call, but not necessarily anything out of the ordinary. That was until authorities got to the location and realized that they couldn't find any kind of evidence of a crash. They kept searching and ended up finding a maroon-colored car that was nose down in a ditch nearby, but this car was covered in so much undergrowth that it must have been here for months. This meant that somehow this crash went undetected for 5 months, and worst of all, so did the body that lay nearby. Using dental records, they were able to identify the body as a man who had been wanted for robbery since July of that year. It is said that the sighting of the car leaving the road was a ghostly replay of the events that had taken place 5 months prior. What do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments if you think the witness saw a cursed reenactment of the fatal crash, or if you think something else is at play here. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Destiny Ring. Rudolph Valentino was an incredibly famous silent film star before he passed away at the incredibly young age of just 31 years old, and there are many out there who believe his untimely death was caused by the Destiny Ring. This ring was one that he picked up from a California jeweler. Before purchasing it, there were warnings of the stories which claimed this ring was cursed, but Rudolph decided to go ahead with the purchase anyway. It is said that after this ring came into his possession, his luck began to turn. The movies he starred in started to do poorly, some even flopping, and his career began to struggle. From there, he fell incredibly ill, and when he passed away, he was wearing this cursed ring. From there, after his death, his lover ended up receiving the ring, but once it was in her possession, she too fell extremely ill and decided to give the ring away. All the owners after that were reported to have died in strange ways or under mysterious circumstances, which has led the ring to now being placed in a bank vault, all locked up so that it hopefully can never cause harm to anyone ever again. In our number 1 spot today, we have Letta the doll. Why do all the cursed dolls look like they would be cursed? You know what I mean? Like, there's no cursed doll out there that is surprisingly cursed. They all look creepy to begin with. Anyway, Letta is a doll that is said to be around 200 years old and extremely cursed. This doll is called Letta for short, as its full name is Letta Me Out of Here. Really clever. The doll was originally found underneath a house, which definitely feels like the origin story of a haunted doll. This creepy discovery came 47 years ago, and apparently Letta still lives with the man who found him. The hauntings of Letta include things like the doll walking around on its own at night, the owners finding objects around the house that have been moved into odd places. Some people have seen Letta move right in front of their own eyes, and the owner also reports finding little doll-sized scuff barks around the house as well. It is said that this doll once belonged to a child who passed away while holding it, thus their spirit became trapped inside of the doll. Apparently one day in an interview about Letta, as the interviewer was asking questions about the little boy, the doll began to move in her lap. Yeah, no thank you. Letta has his own Instagram and Facebook page in case you want to hear more about all the creepiness surrounding this cursed doll.
I'm about to hang up on you. Do it again.
What is a beautiful woman like you? Place like this. Better now. Today, I scoured the internet to bring you some of the cursed, mind-blowing, and secret photos out there. From flesh monsters to the truth about your ramen noodles. Let's talk about this and more on today's video. Starting off this countdown, we have the cup of ramen noodles. Ever wanted to know what your ramen noodles look like before hot water and delicious seasoning is poured on top of it? Well, now you can. And now, how many of you feel like this is a scam? I thought the whole damn bottom half of the cup was filled, not just a portion of the cup. This literally should be illegal. That and only filling up chip bags halfway. Like, what's up with that? Seriously, I get that ramen is cheap and all, but at least give us poor people more noodles than that. Doubt companies are going to be too thrilled now that we have learned about this. We're on to you. Moving on at number 9, we have the bloodless heart. So I'm sure all of us know what a human heart looks like, right? I mean, like, out of the body. I mean, you should, or else that's kind of concerning. Like, do you not pay attention in school? Anyways, this photo I'm about to show you is what a human heart looks like.
In our number 10 spot today, we have the Dybbuk box. The box, which was originally just a plain old wine box, is said to have been possessed by a Dybbuk, which...
Today, I scoured the internet to bring you some of the most cursed, mind-blowing, and secret photos out there. From flesh monsters to the truth about your ramen noodles. Let's talk.
The exorcism of Emily Rose is based off of the real exorcism of a young woman named Annalise Michelle. She was a devout Catholic woman who was possessed by 5 different demons. She would convulse and hallucinate randomly, and she claimed that demons were whispering in her ears. In the end, she underwent about 67 exorcisms. Some lasted up to 4 hours. That sounds pretty horrific, right? Well, there are a number of other individuals who have been possessed by even more demons and had worse exorcisms than Annalise. From a possessed woman that would vomit glass and nails to another that was possessed for 14 years. Let's talk about this and more only in today's video. Starting off this countdown, we have the exorcism of Gottlieben Dittis. This is the name of a 28-year-old German woman who was said to be possessed in 1842. It all started when she began to experience paranormal activity going on in her house. Soon after the haunting started, she would slip in and out of these trance-like states. It took the priest 2 years before the demons were finally expelled from her body. So for 2 years, she was tortured by the demons inside of her. In fact, apparently she would vomit blood, glass, and nails. That sounds very painful. After a number of exorcisms, this woman was finally freed. It was revealed that she was being possessed by a widow who went crazy and murdered her family and then buried them in a field. Moving on to number 9, we have the exorcism of Gina. In 1990, a teenager from Florida by the name of Gina underwent an exorcism. In fact, her exorcism was broadcasted on the ABC network for millions of people to watch. In the end, 29 million people ended up tuning in. During the exorcism, Gina was strapped to a chair and tried to fight back a number of times. She would bark at the priest and yell out when he would press a cross against her forehead.
I therefore enjoin every unclean spirit, each devil, each part of Satan.
As the prayers intensified, so did Gina's physical reactions. The teen's doctor ties her arms and legs to the chair.
In the end, it was found that she was being possessed by a number of demonic spirits, including one named Zion and one named Minga. In our 8th spot today, we have the exorcism of George Lukens. In 1788, a woman named Sarah Baber reported English tailor George Lukens to the church and begged them to help him. George's behavior was very alarming to her, and she knew he was possessed. He would go into these fits where he would scream and sing loudly in different voices. He would also make inhuman noises and sing church songs
backwards. On Friday the 13th of that year, 7
Bro, I'm about to
priests
hang up
exorcised
because why am I listening to
during which
yelling
he
all in my
moaned
ear?
and growled. In the end, the 7 priests commanded the demons in George to leave. Thankfully, it worked. All of a sudden, George snapped out of the state and said, "Bless Jesus." He then recited a prayer, and they knew the demons were finally cast out of his body. Coming in at number 7, we have Clara Germaina Seeley. In 1906, a 16-year-old from South Africa, Clara Seeley, decided to make a
I'm about
pact
to,
with the devil, which obviously went wrong because she ended up getting possessed. During her possession, she would behave erratically, growl, speak in tongue, exhibit superhuman strength, and would even tear the clothes off of her own body. In fact, when the priests were performing the exorcism, the holy water they splashed on her would literally burn her skin, and she even levitated in front of 170 witnesses. In the end, a noxious smell left her body, and that's when she was freed from the demon that was possessing her. Moving on to number 6, we have Michael Taylor. Sadly, this exorcism did not end well for Michael or his family. It was 1974, and Michael was a 31-year-old father of 5 children and husband to Christine Taylor. Everything was going fine until one day he just snapped. He had a huge public outburst and started screaming at everyone and was being belligerent to his wife. According to a witness, she said, and I quote, "Suddenly I glanced at Mike and his whole features changed. He looked almost beast-like. He kept looking at me and there was a really wild look in his eyes. I knew that only the name of Jesus would save me, and I just started saying over and over, I firmly believe that I was only by calling." Michael ended up undergoing a number of exorcisms. A bunch of priests spent hours casting
'Cause you're yelling.
40 demons from him. They knew there were 3 more demons inside of him: murder,
What are you
madness,
going
and
through?
violence. But they were all.
What?
That night, he attacked and killed his wife. Police found him shortly after, wandering the streets covered in blood. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the possession of Julia.
You're
Now, this
sick.
is a fairly recent case of Julia became possessed. Apparently, Julia was the queen of a satanic cult, and one night, got attacked by a demon. Immediately, she knew she needed help and went to a local priest. But the priest was like, hell to the no, I'm not dealing with this. And so she reached out to a psychiatrist named Richard Gallagher. Gallagher then analyzed her behavior and knew she wasn't mentally ill, but was indeed possessed. During their meeting, items would fly off the shelves in his office, and Julia would speak in tongue and share intimate details about Richard that she couldn't have possibly known. When she did undergo her exorcism, she got very violent. She had super strength, she levitated, and changed the temperature in the room. That's insane. In our 4th spot, we have the exorcism of Laura. This is another fairly recent case of possession. Back in 2015, a woman named Laura from Argentina became possessed. In fact, her entire exorcism was filmed. During the exorcism, we could see Laura writhing in pain and contorting her body. She also screams a number of profanities and bangs her head on the ground. While the priests are trying to get the demons out of her, she screams no out loud in pain. The exorcism finally comes to an end when she begins crying and then falls backwards, exhausted. Thankfully, after all of this, she was freed from the demons possessing her. In our 3rd spot, we have the exorcism of Rosa. In 2015, a man named Father Amorth took on the possession case of a woman named Rosa. Rosa was in her late 30s when weird things began to happen to her. She was acting different and would constantly have outbursts. Things got so bad that her family took her to see Father Amorth. He ended up performing 9 or more exorcisms on her. During the exorcisms, Rosa's body would throb. She would thrash violently, she would foam from the mouth, and she would try to attack the bystanders. She even would talk to the father in Latin when she didn't even speak the language. In the end, the exorcism was successful, and Father Amorth determined that the cause of her possession was due to a curse that her brother's girlfriend put on her. Both her brother and the girlfriend were members of a demonic cult, and the girlfriend was a witch. In our 2nd spot today, we have Anna Eklund. This is another very famous exorcism case. Anna Eklund was an American woman who in 1928 became possessed and underwent a number of exorcisms. During her exorcisms, things would happen like she would hiss or howl like an animal. She would float in the air, and whenever holy water would touch her skin, it would burn her skin right off. She would also climb up her bedroom walls and speak in tongues. This all started when she was 14 years old, but got worse as she got older. Now, the first exorcism took place when she was only 14, and it was a success, but only for a short period of time, because she became possessed again in 1928. After that, Anna underwent 30 exorcisms, but all of them failed. So they decided to send her to St. Joseph's Church in Iowa to see if they could get the demons out of her. While there, she apparently would throw up 20 to 30 times a day, and it reeked. It was so bad that nuns had to take 15-minute shifts with her, or else they would fall ill. In the end, it was discovered that Anna got possessed due to a curse that her father and her aunt put on her. How messed up is that? Her aunt was apparently a witch that mixed potions in with her food that caused her to become possessed. And in our number one spot today, we have Roland Doe. The case of Roland Doe is the true story that inspired the movie The Exorcist. It all began in the late 1940s in Washington, D.C. with a 13-year-old named Roland Doe. We don't actually know his last name, so they just gave him the last name Doe. Other people call him Ronald, so that's not his real name. Anyways, the poor boy lost his Aunt Harriet, who he loved and shared a special connection to. Shortly after her death in 1949, Roland started to experience strange things. He would hear scratching coming from the floors and walls of his room, and things around him would move on their own. Roland's family began to worry about him, so they went to a local Catholic priest for help. They then decided to perform an exorcism on Roland. Upon doing so, Roland would convulse badly. He even managed to rip out a spring from the mattress that he was strapped down on. He then took the spring and slashed one of the priests with it. A few days later, scratches began to appear all over Roland's body. In fact, at one point, an X appeared scratched into his chest. Another thing they saw was a pitchfork-shaped pattern of red lines move across his body. The marking went from the boy's thigh and moved down to his ankle. The priest, after analyzing Roland, noticed a strange pattern in his behavior. During the day, he was calm and normal, but at night, he would get wild and scream and act belligerent. Every night, Roland would undergo an exorcism. It was believed that he was possessed by 10 demons. Finally, on April 18th in 1949, the priest managed to expel Satan from his body. They shouted at Satan, saying that St. Michael would battle him for Roland's soul. 7 minutes later, Roland came out of a trance and simply said, "He's gone." After that, everything seemingly went back to normal. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below which one of these...
Can you see me good? Good. Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm the manager and the janitor here.
Today we are looking at some lost tapes so terrifying and bizarre that they appear to have come from a parallel universe. Caution, this content might be disturbing to some viewers. Starting off this countdown, we have the scary last footage. This footage was filmed in 2006 and features two young guys driving along a dark road at night. At one point, they decided to make a shortcut through the forest, and that's when things start to get strange. What's worse is that this is the last footage ever taken of them. It showcases their final moments, as they were never seen again. After driving for a while, they decided to get out of the car and walk around the woods. That's when they hear some weird sounds in the distance. While we never get a clear shot of this animal, it sounds like a goat or a pig. The final moments of the video show the beast chasing them as they try to get back to their car.
Guess what? Guess what?
What? How you gonna say guess what? Then say never mind.
Tape glitch. So according to Joaquin Baldwin on YouTube, in 1994 he brought his Sony VHS-C camcorder with him when he went to go visit
From old stories to new, from Ouija boards to spells, we've got a spooky one today. We are diving into the paranormal today as we cover the top 10 evil people who summoned real demons. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Ed. When Tammy was a kid, her and her sister would often use Ouija boards, and it always seemed that they would end up communicating with the same spirit who was named Ed. Ed apparently wasn't super nice because he would continually threaten their younger brother during this time, and he was never with them during the times that they were using the board, so it was definitely weird. Eventually, they got creeped out enough that they got rid of the board and just put Ed behind them. A few years later, when their little brother got older, he had used a Ouija board with his friend a couple of times, and he came home to tell his older sisters a story that had him freaked out. He explained that every time him and his friend used the board, there kept being a spirit named Ed who was threatening him. Apparently, their mother ended up banning the use of Ouija boards in their house, which really is the right move. In our number 9 spot today, we have the book. Okay, so what if I told you that someone out there really thought it was a good idea to write a book that is for children, but it tells them how to summon demons? I mean, listen, for years there's been urban legends like Bloody Mary and Charlie, which of course tell us instructions on how to summon those respective demons, but urban legends are part of being a child. It's spooky stories to share amongst friends, but this book really takes things to an entirely new level. Many who are more well-versed in the worlds of witchcraft and the paranormal have explained that this book, written by Aaron Layton, is basically a grimoire. It contains 72 different demons that can be conjured by those who read it for their own personal gain, which is basically the definition of black magic. The book not only includes these sort of cute drawings of creepy demons, but it also includes the symbols for each demon, which some have warned is also a very bad sign. In our number 9 spot today, we have The Room. This story comes from an anonymous source, but we'll call them Alex. Alex and their fiance, who we'll call Sam, were given a Ouija board that their friend had apparently found on the side of the road, which I feel like is the worst place to find a new Ouija board. Alex and Sam decided to use it one night and began to ask questions. They asked who was with them and if they were an angel, demon, or spirit. It replied that their name was Mo and that they were a demon by your creation. Alex and Sam were obviously freaked out and just asked a few more simple questions, like, what is your favorite poster of ours on the wall? Mo replied with bloody mess. Alex and Sam had a kiss photo with Gene Simmons on it that had blood everywhere on it. Alex pointed to that poster and asked, this one? Mo said yes. Alex and Sam had a few skeleton heads that sat on their TV, so they asked Mo to move the skeleton heads so that they could have proof Mo was real. Mo said to close their eyes, so they did. A few seconds later, all of the skulls on the TV had moved to be facing them. Only Sam and Alex were in the room at the time, and they had been sitting right next to each other, which would have made it impossible for one of them to be pranking the other. In our number 7 spot today, we have Niccolo Paganini. Niccolo was a professional violinist who was born in 1782. His parents began to send him to lessons when he was just 5 years old, and by age 15, he was already touring the world because he was so talented. What's interesting about Niccolo and his story, other than his obvious musical genius, however, is the rumors surrounding his talent and subsequent recognition. According to some, people believe that his own mother summoned the devil in order for her son to be the extreme talent that he is. There are many modern diagnoses that could potentially explain some of what made Niccolo so talented, and I mean, we all know quite well that sometimes people are just born with extreme talent, but of course in the early 1800s, people in their imagination certainly ran wild. The final reason why people believe he may have made a deal with the devil is because shortly before his death, he was
FanDuel Sportsbook lets you bet at the speed of the NBA. And if you feel the momentum shifting, you can cash out while you're ahead. Right now, new customers get a risk-free first bet up to $1,000. Download FanDuel today.
sick. The doctors had a feeling he was nearing death, so they sent in a priest to pray over him. When he first saw the priest, it is said that he freaked out and sent the priest away. Many people believe that him pushing the priest away was only a confirmation of the fact that he was working with the devil. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Lady Ghost Demon. This story comes from the Reddit user 7like Spider, and they really just dive in. Basically, for several years, Spider saw what they thought was just a lady ghost every night at the door of the closet. It happened for so long that Spider just got used to it and even started saying goodnight to her. Spider says she didn't look bad or rotten, she was just a lady with pale skin and dark hair. Anyway, after a few years of this, Spider finally tells a friend at school about the lady. He of course didn't believe the story right away, but the next day at school he tells Spider that this lady tried to hurt him while he was sleeping. Now, Spider didn't believe the friend and thought he was just playing a prank. Some more time goes by and Spider decides to tell another friend about the lady, and the same thing happens where the next time she comes and tells Spider that the lady had tried to hurt her while she was sleeping. The first friend and the second friend didn't know each other, so it's not like they could have been conspiring, which made Spider believe his first friend was telling the truth. Then, a while after that, Spider is on a video chat with a friend and they're talking about the paranormal when they both see something run across the screen. They chalk it up to being a glitch, and Spider starts telling this friend about the lady, and then Spider begins to get extremely dizzy, like they're about to pass out. After it goes away, Spider tells their friend that they're okay, and the friend replies that they were out of it for at least a full minute, and that he could feel that someone was there trying to hurt Spider. In the end, I'm just really glad that Spider and all of the friends ended up being okay, and I really hope they found a way to get rid of that demon lady. In our number 5 spot today, we have the meditation. This story comes from someone online who starts off by explaining that they accidentally summoned